What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 91 of Into the Necrosphere. I am joined today by Roman V of Bizarrekult. I spoke last week about their debut record, Overlevde, which absolutely blew me away. Immediately, I decided I needed to get Roman on the show, and we spoke all about how the record was made, as well as covering a host of other topics. So that is going to be coming your way shortly. I am also talking this week about a new band out of Lithuania. I say new band, but new discovery for me. This is actually their second record. A band called Erdve, and they've just put out a new album on Season of Mist, which demands your attention. I'm going to explain exactly why that is in about an hour's time, so stick around for that. And then I'll also do the usual news. So lots of good things coming your way on this episode. Also, later on this week, I'm going to be releasing my Woodstock 99 special that I recorded with my buddy Lo Reichert. I've decided that when I do something that's a little maybe off the typical Into the Necrosphere formula, like the hi-fi episode that I did, I'll release that as a second episode in a given week. So that means that it's kind of give and take. I'm giving you guys something a little different, but I'm assuming that for some people they're not necessarily going to be into something that is not strictly grim and cult. But either way, I had a lot of fun doing that episode. I think you guys are going to enjoy listening to it. So that'll probably drop on Thursday or Friday. Usual housekeeping announcements. If you're new to the podcast, hit the subscribe button on whichever platform you consume your podcasting goodness on, be that YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else. Also, follow the show on social media. Pretty easy to find. Go to the Teespring store if you want to buy yourself some Into the Necrosphere merchandise or goodies. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see I'm wearing my Swanky Voices t-shirt, based on the cover for their new EP, An Audience with Mannequins. Actually, it might be an audience of mannequins. Either way, head over to Church Road Records' website, pick yourself out a Voices t-shirt. Not only are they a fucking cool band, it's a great EP. And the other thing is you're going to be supporting Dementia UK by handing over your ducats on this one. So, giving money to a good cause is never a bad thing. I'm not being paid to do this. I'm not being asked to do this, but dementia is something that hits pretty close to home for me. Not because I'm demented, but I lost two grandparents to it. And like I said, Voices are a fucking cool band, and I know that the majority of you guys are big fans. Which brings me to another point of conversation. So I've mentioned episode 100 a couple of times now. Like I said, big announcements coming for that one. But if you've been paying close attention over the last 60 seconds, I might have dropped a big hint about what's coming. That is pretty much it for me. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this next hour or so that I've spent with Roman of Bizarrekult. If you haven't checked out that record yet, more fool you. It is absolutely awesome. Norwegian black metal by way of Russia is about the best way to describe it. So sit back, enjoy. This is Bizarrekult. Okay, well, let's get to it, man. Welcome first and foremost to Into the Necrosphere, and I just to double check, I'm speaking to you from the mean streets of Norway. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And but you haven't always been in Norway, right? If I'm to believe the legend on Metal Archives, you were in Lithuania at first, or Russia, and then moved to Norway.
Well, no, I mean it's been a very turbulent pathway, let's say so. And I was born and raised in Russia, finished my education there, and then it all started with very a diverse and interesting journey to the unknown after I finished my university. And so I've been in Norway for the last 12 years. Say so, and yeah, seems like we settled here for the rest of our lives if nothing happens. Yeah.
And when you say you settled, are you talking about your family, or like you and your significant other, or you and your parents?
Yeah, I'm talking about me and my wife.
Yeah.
And then I mean, we have 2 kids, so yeah, we.
All right, okay. So
Well,
black metal dad.
yeah, something like that.
Have they heard their dad's music?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's pretty cool because normally I just play on guitar without any amplifier, just play something, and then it's pretty cool when my youngest daughter says, "Yeah, you remember this melody you played a couple of days ago? That was really good." I was like, "Okay, sounds good. If the child remembers that, then it sounds really good."
Yeah.
And then of course,
How old are they?
so it's 13 and 10.
Okay, so they're kind of at that point as well where when they give you a compliment,
Yeah.
I mean, not to denigrate the compliment of a toddler, because when my daughter complimented me when she was 3 and 4, it meant the world to me. But I feel like they're a tougher crowd when they get to that age, when they 10, 11, 13. I mean, even my daughter at 7 right now, it's getting awfully hard to please her and make her happy. So when the compliments do come, I feel like I'm on top of the world.
No, I mean it's kind of rewarding, and I mean this is like the first and foremost feedback that we have just internally in home, because my wife, she's also a musician by education, and she's singing on the record.
Mm-hmm.
So those female parts she's singing, and of course we also discuss sometimes song progression, or we can sketch ideas, and she can give me feedback like, okay, I think this doesn't work, and then we can kind of argue about this. No, I really think this is cool, and she would be like, no, this is not working. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards she would be like, yeah, actually you were right. Or sometimes I can say, well, actually you were right, I changed here the things. And then with kids, it's very rewarding to see that they know the songs also. And then for the oldest, it's like when I was at like a class meeting at school, like the other teenagers said, "Oh, your dad is really cool." So like, okay, fine.
I'll say that's again, what better compliment. And your wife, is she into this music as well, or is it like my situation where, I mean, I think my girlfriend's taste in music could not be more diametrically opposed to what I listen to. She's awfully tolerant, but she's definitely not a fan.
Well, you see, it's quite an interesting thing because she's a classical musician by education, but we have been playing music together since like 2000, something like this. So, and before that, there was a band called Driados, or Driados. So she was composing the music. So it's like a symphonic black metal. There were some demos and 1 LP and 1 EP. So that was actually our first collab, let's say, on the musical venue, and that was quite successful back in the days. But I mean, of course, locally, because Russia is huge, and you are so far from everything if you are living not in the center. And just today, I was when I was thinking about all this like podcasts and all this stuff, I was like, well, I can remember that back in the days, like 20 years ago, you had to like go to internet cafe, find some information on the web, like mail address, ship the demo somewhere, and then maybe someone would reply you. Mm-hmm. Whereas now everything is so super fast with social networks, emails, and so on. Just you interact with people immediately. So, and sorry if I did
no,
too much from discussion. From the original question, I mean, so basically, of course, she had, let's say, before we met 20 years ago, she had a slightly different taste in music, but then I introduced her to, let's say, more metal and black metal music, and this ended up as so she was composing the music for the other band. But then, I mean, we stopped doing music because relocations and all the situations in life, and but now she's really appreciating what I'm doing. And as I said, she's singing on the record, and we are discussing songs, and she's a very valuable first hand here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
I mean, and she must be pretty chuffed with the response to this new record, as I would imagine you are. Are you surprised by how positively it's being received?
Well, I mean, I was really scared, I was really afraid before we actually released the album, because I was like, because you spend so much time on thinking about those things, and like, because for you it matters so much. And then, let's say, I put a lot of personal feelings and emotions and personal experiences in the lyrics. And then it was like, for me, it was like, um it's like, yeah, it would be interesting to hear what would others think about the record. And I mean, so first of all, it was like overwhelming, the response, first of all, from like Scandinavian people, Scandinavian fans, Norway and Denmark, Sweden, because first of all, they understand the words, without going for translations, and they were like, wow, this is really impressive piece of text. And it's like, even when we had like a mini release party in a local metal bar, one of the guys said, well, just based on this record, just based on the lyrics, you should have been granted the citizenship. So simply because of that, like, because sometimes this is granted because you made some contribution to the country and something like this. I mean, um I wouldn't position myself like that this is so significant contribution to, like, um national culture. But I mean, I'm let's say I'm really proud of what we achieved. And then, of course, the overall response from everywhere around the world was simply, mind-blowing, because before the album came out, I was like, well, I'm not really sure what's going to happen, because, yeah, because for many reasons, you don't know how people would appreciate the music, what they would say. So it was, simply above all possible expectations. And I mean, it's amazing that we are in the middle of the summer, in the middle of holiday season, and feedback just keeps going on. And this is really, um, yeah, motivating and rewarding, and really cool to see all the feedback. It's just wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's well deserved. Like I said on my review, it's I feel like there's been a lot of great records this year. There's maybe not been as many great debuts, and I feel like your debut really stands out. Partly for that reason, it's not there's not been a huge amount, but then I also feel like as the more I listen to the record, the more that the record strikes me as being, very mature, and it doesn't sound like, this doesn't sound like a band that's been around for, for a couple of years, which I know you haven't. And I kind of, when I sort of looked into it, I generally speaking, when I hear a great debut, the first thing I'll look at is, how long have these guys been doing this for? Obviously you've been sat on Bizarrekult since 2006, technically speaking, when you put out your first demo. So how old are some of the songs that are on this record? How long have they sort of been in the marination, the creative marination stage?
In the maturation, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, let's say when I finished my university and we started relocations, first inside Russia and then abroad. So like basically all music activity was set on ice, and I did occasional, some ideas, but sketches, but nothing really serious. And then when we came to Norway, it was kind of very, I don't know, inspiring in some extent. So that was like 2009, and I bought a guitar and just started creating something. Like, well, I was like, okay, maybe I should team with some guys here locally and create something. So we started rehearsing, and basically the majority of the material that you hear on this record, this was composed, I mean, the music, the riffs, let's say, in 2009, 2010. But then it was very demanding for us, with jobs and, like small kids and all the stuff. So it was all put on ice. So, and I mean, basically, uh, it could have been never released, never finished, basically. And so I wasn't doing anything, let's say, between 2010 and 19, roughly. So no music at all. And it was very interesting because, here, one of my friends comes into the light, the guy who is on the record, Ignat,
Mm-hmm.
who is living in Minsk in Belarus. And we have been connected, not through music, but we had our other hobbies, like, scale modeling, like building military models. So we have been connected to this. And then when we were on a physical meeting, like at a exhibition abroad, we both met there for the first time, and we started to talk about, just different things in life. And suddenly we discovered that we both appreciate this kind of music, doom, black metal, sludge, and so on. And he had a band, or he has a band still. So, and then he was really like excited when he heard that, yeah, actually you have some music, why you don't release it? And I was like, I don't know, it's been so many years since, I'm not sure if I really want to, and if I have something to say. So for me, it was really important to get the impulse, get this kick to understand what I want to say with the music. Because he was we were like, he was teasing me back and forth, like, yeah, let's do this. I can help you out with this. And I was like, yeah, well, of course you can help me out with this, but I'm not sure if I actually want to do this, if I want to finish this, if there's something to say. And then, yeah, let's say 2018, 19 were kind of, I don't know, difficult psychologically for me. There have been, I don't know what is, middle age crisis, whatever. So, but yeah, there have been so many questions, and I've spent a lot of time on decomposing what's going inside my head. I mean, I'm not talking about music. I'm just like, what I'm doing in this life, what's going on around me, and so on and so forth, and where this all goes, and like relationship with people, and reflections about childhood. So yeah, a lot of different things. And I'm a medical doctor by education, so I've been like reading like psychology and all those things, and then looking, like reflecting on what's going on. And then I was like, yeah, I kind of maturated through this, and I said, okay, let's go for this. I know now I can say something. I have something to say. So if we do the music now, I have words to accompany the music. So that's how it started. And I mean, we basically, collaborated online, and we just made this record basically, on the internet. We can say so.
Yeah.
So,
Which is
yeah.
It's interesting to hear you say that, because, as I said, the record definitely sounds, it doesn't sound like kind of the DIY type project that you've just described now. It sounds like a band who've been playing cohesively together for a period of time, and kind of finally have the songs now that they want to release, which I mean is very much a compliment to you. But I was interested in what you said about midlife crisis. How old are you right now?
Well, I'm 38, a little bit
38.
more than 38. Yeah.
Yeah, so I turned 40 in 2020, literally right before we were supposed to go off on holiday to go celebrate my 40th. Pandemic lockdowns began, so I technically speaking, I'm still 40, but I until I actually get to celebrate it properly, my time doesn't move forward. But what I will definitely say, I I I can relate to what you're saying around getting to a stage in your life when you start thinking, how much time do I have left? How much do I still want to do? And every now and then I'll you kind of think to yourself, well, how many people do I know who are gonna, who are 80? How many people do I know who turned 70? And how many people do I know who died at 60? And you start going, Jesus Christ, I could only have 20 years left, 25 years left. So you start taking care of your health more. And, but I think for me, definitely it's kind of unfinished business, I think, is the thing that haunts me the most. And, in some ways it's part of why I started this podcast, because it's always something I've wanted to do. I didn't want it to ever be a job. I have a job, but I wanted this to, I felt like I needed some sort of outlet and some sort of finger in music, but on my own terms. Was that kind of a similar feeling to what you felt like with Bizarrekult as well?
Well, I mean, it's just, it's like, I don't know, it just those kind of so much pressure, I don't know, from everywhere, from jobs and family and yeah, everything. So I just went into this and started questioning why things are like that in my life, and if there's like something underlying problems or whatever. And yeah, so I don't know, it's just, yeah, it was an interesting process. I was traveling quite a lot for work, and yeah, I had quite a lot of time to reflect on things, while being on the planes, in the hotels and so on. So yeah.
And then obviously lockdown begins and all of that changes too.
Well, yeah, no, but I think basically, I mean, with lockdown, I experienced it. It's a rather positive thing because, working from home, you get much more time for, I don't know, like my employees as well. It's good and bad because you have too much time to think about things. But for me, it was like, well, it's kind of beneficial. I have a lot of time to think about things that I never had time to think of.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it was also very efficient for us because, okay, we made this record, right? We now released an album, but we also have a second album already recorded now. So yeah, and basically I started preparing material for album number 3. So it's been like super productive 2 years. The last 2 years was super productive from music point of view. That's
The
it.
floodgates are well and truly open now.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, if you don't mind me asking, what made you decide to leave Russia? Because again, something I can relate to. I moved out of South Africa, which is where I grew up in, and I moved to the UK in 2002. I mean, there was no reason for it other than I had this insane idea that I would be able to host a radio show or kind of continue a career in radio in the UK. And then I very, very quickly realized that no one's going to pay money to listen to a South African talk shit about talk shit and play death metal and black metal on the radio. So those dreams were very quickly dashed. But I still settled down here, kind of found my feet here. What got you out of Russia?
I mean, nothing particular, basically. It's just, let's say I was young and yeah, interested in seeing the world, what's going on around and so on. So it was, let's say, when I'm rethinking about this, reflecting about it back in the days, it's more like this was a very amateurish and unprepared decision, so it was like to some extent impulsive, like, okay, I want to do this. Yeah, this was something that none of us two was really ready for, but okay, so we made it. We survived to some extent. So I mean, people often think about Russia like, I don't know, but political situation, whatever. But I mean, I didn't had any of this as reasons. I had okay life with good job and good education. So yeah, let's say life after moving out was much more challenging than while living in your own country.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of settled the last 3-4 years, so now everything is good. But yeah.
Why Norway? What was the attraction to settling down in Norway? And it certainly feels like, from what you're saying, you guys as a couple have found your feet there, and you this is long-term home for you now.
Yep. So no, I mean, initially there was like, I mean, let's say when I was also reflecting on this some time ago, I was like, if somebody would have told me 15 years ago that I would be living here, I wouldn't believe this person. Like, why bother? Why should I go? And then, but at the same time, so I mean, we didn't come here like directly. We traveled around different places as well, and then I don't know. It's just feels so natural to be here. It's just very, it's just awesome. And yeah, at first, of course, it was a little bit, like weird in some aspects, or like a little bit not very things that they are not very used to. But then, when you get to know the people, you understand how the society works and so on. It's like, okay, I don't really want to go anywhere. And it's often like when we discuss it, it's like, yeah, I don't even want to go on holiday abroad.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like you are so used to customs here, to what people, you kind of, it's in a way you can say it's predictable, but in a good way. Not that it's boring, but it's more like you know what to expect. Like
Yeah.
you go somewhere, okay, I go there, and this is what you expect there, and you will get it there. It's not like you come somewhere in a small place and everything is totally different. It's like everything is more or less similar. So of course there are differences between big city like Oslo and smaller places, but otherwise it's more or less the same, and people are nice and kind and friendly and so on. So I don't
I
know.
was about to say, what were some of the things about Norway that surprised you most? In contrast to life in Russia.
Well, I mean, just mention this. It's predictability to some extent, because I would say that if we say what is the most dramatic difference, is that I would say that Russia is much more chaotic. There's like crazy chaos in everyday life, and I mean, when you're living there, it's like, okay, this is how the things are, and you find your way through this, and you know how the things are, functioning, and you just have to you kind of accept it. But then here it's much more predictable. So this is something that you have to kind of adapt, because you need to slow down, you need to calm down to some extent, and there are still things that I think I'm not there yet. Like people very often here, if they are like, let's say, on the summer vacation, that means that they're totally off. Like you won't be able to get any reply on email for 4 weeks from the person. So for me, it's like still I'm opening the emails for work. I look at the titles. Okay, well, it doesn't matter if I don't reply now, but I still check them. So, but many people here, it's like, if they're off, they are off. And this is something that I'm not very used to still, even after so many years. Yeah, so I would say that the thing that like everything is much more organized, like I know, sorted out. Like yeah. So it's like something what you expect, let's say, from Germans, that everything is correct, but then here it's correct, but also in a very comfortable way. So things are kind of comfortable, and people try to make everything nice and comfortable for you, which is really cool, especially when you are a foreigner and you are not used to things. Because I mean, I know in other countries you won't be taken care of so much by people. When you come at work or at workplace, nobody would bother like here. Here it's much more friendly for everyone.
Yeah, when I moved into a European role for the first time in my career, that was the thing that blew my mind most, was the way they manage summer holiday. It's like August 1st, I'm gone, and you'll see me again on 31st of August and in the beginning of September. And as you say, they're dead to the world. They don't answer emails, they don't touch a thing. Whereas, if you work with the US or you work with the UK, I mean, generally speaking, people are so addicted to work. And I do think the European way of doing it is a lot mentally healthier, and I think that's become especially true during lockdown, where, your front room or your study is now your office. So you very rarely have that disconnect between work and your personal life that at least you used to when you had to travel into the office. I would personally not want to ever work from an office again. I hate commuting. I don't like public transport, especially in London. And I also live in the countryside now, so it wouldn't be possible for me to do it again. But yeah, I like the idea of kind of switching off and not being part of the rat race for for a good long while, at least once a year.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Have you do you have a finger on the pulse of the Norwegian music scene by, now that you've kind of moved there? Because obviously, you can't possibly talk about black metal and not think about Norway. So, but I think a lot of folks, when they think about it, they sort of romanticize this place where, there's churches burning on every street corner and, kids wearing Mayhem t-shirts, starting the next generation of amazing Norwegian black metal bands. And I kind of feel like before I knew more about Bizarrekult's background, it was almost like you guys were a bit of a breath of fresh air. You're like, oh, this is the first really cool Norwegian band that I've heard of in a while. Do you kind of get a sense of what the scene is like over there, or are you sort of on the fringes?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit hard to say because it's like I don't have that many contacts with the musicians, so I have some contacts with people online. I have some really nice contacts and interaction with people, but I mean, I can't really, I don't think that I'm entitled to properly say that, okay, I'm part of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet. So yeah, I mean, I maybe I shouldn't really comment on this.
You haven't turned up at Helvete yet and spray painted your logo on the wall in the basement.
No. I'm kind of, yeah. I'm not there yet. I'm
Yeah.
not really interacting that much.
The people that you do speak to in Norway, or the folks that you have spoken to about music in Norway, is there at least a sense of them understanding or grasping the importance of their country's contribution to black metal in terms of how it progressed, how it evolved, grew, and got to where it is today?
Yeah, I mean, there's no discussion here. I mean, it's a big thing here. Of course, I mean, it's not that crazy big, like, like this Norwegian national TV and NRK. They made some films a couple of years ago, and one of them was when Mayhem were on tour in South America. And the guy from Turbo Negro, he was a journalist there, and he was interviewing the locals, and they were like asking them, what do you think, how many people in Norway listen to black metal? And people there said, yeah, everyone is listening to black metal only. And I mean, let's say, well, if you talk about general population, of course, people like, this is like really not something big for the general population. But at the same time, it's a really big thing. I mean, for people who listen to metal, everybody knows about the scene and the bands, and everyone respects the bands and they appreciate it. And you see them in newspapers, like, I mean, not specialized newspapers, but you can read about bigger bands in, like, normal newspapers that people get on their door. Yeah, I mean, it's accepted and rewarded at musical awards and so on. So I mean, it's really big, and everyone is, respectful to their heritage and the scene. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so it's
they've got that. Is it the Spielhaus Award or like the Norwegian Grammys or something? I've seen.
Yeah,
Satyricon won, Taka have won. So it's and it's not, they're not winning like specifically for metal. They're winning for like record of the year. Which blows my mind.
There's a metal category in this music awards, so normally it's there. But for example, last year Mayhem got I'm not sure what is exactly the name, but like a honorary award, like, for all the contributions for years. So yeah.
So I want to see what that is now. Actually, you got my interest peaked. Yeah, there we go.
It's called Spellman.
Spellman, yeah. So Mayhem named honorary award winner of the year at Norway's Spellman Prisen Awards, the largest, most prestigious award ceremony in the Norwegian music industry's calendar. The Spellman Prisen Awards were handed out last night, April 16th, during a virtual ceremony, and legendary black metal band Mayhem were announced as the honorary award winner of the year.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So the jury's reasoning: icon, legend, genre-defining, and world-class music. I totally agree. I think, I mean, I talk about this a lot on the podcast. I think they're one of the few bands that continue to make interesting music and continue to do different, interesting, challenging things on every single record without kind of straying from the Mayhem sound or from being Mayhem.
Mm.
And to me, that says an awful lot if you've been in the scene for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I think with some people, there seems to be sort of this well of ideas that eventually dries up. And there's a bunch of bands that I can reference there. Slayer being one of them. But then there's this very, very choice few that just never ever seem to run out of steam. Shane Embry is one. With all of the stuff that he does, Napalm Death and beyond. Mayhem is another. I love Demon. I loved Auto Ad KO. I loved Esoteric Warfare. I think they're just on an absolute roll. And I don't know what they'll do next, because they always seem to do something very, very different with every record. But I would certainly, I have very, very high expectations. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, Mayhem has been very important, and I mean, it is very important. It is a very important band. I assume it will be a very important band for the whole history of metal.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I've said this on podcasts previously. I also like how I like the guys in the band. I've had Ghoul on the show. I think he's awesome, and I like them as representatives of the genre. The genre to me, even though, like, for example, I didn't like seeing that stupid movie about Euronymous and Varg, because the way they represented them, and maybe they're accurate in having done so, but the way they represented the genre was, a bunch of fucking drunk idiot 17-year-olds. And I guess we kind of all went through that phase, not maybe to that extreme, but I think the way that the guys from Mayhem conduct themselves now in 2021, the way they look, the way they are on stage, the way they are in interviews, I like them as representatives of the scene. To me, that's how I always envisioned the scene should be in my mind when I got into this, which was, a good 20, 25 years ago. What were the bands that kind of turned you and got you down this track?
You mean the black metal?
Yeah, well, anything. It starts off with something. Obviously, if you're going to say Slipknot, I'll call you false.
No.
It starts with something, and that's the gateway onto something else. What got you into metal, and then specifically black metal?
Yeah, I mean, let's say the earliest metal bands that I heard were obviously, Metallica. That's kind of classic.
Yeah.
The early 90s.
Which is the case for many of us.
Yes. So, but then in mid 90s, I was really into like doom death, like My Dying Bride, British bands, My Dying Bride, Anathema, Paradise Lost. Like these were the biggest bands for me. And My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost are still on my playlist, and I
same, yeah,
still appreciate them. And then was melodic death that came into this picture with Dark Tranquility with their first LP. And then, I mean, already at this, like it was 96, I think I got a few tapes from a guy from school with like first Immortal and first Emperor, and I wasn't really impressed. And these days, that for me it was like, well, this is not very appealing sound or something like this. So I said, no, I'm not really interested in this. But then, like closer to 2000, like late 90s, when it came out with Dimmu Borgir and like Cradle of Filth, that was like, oh, that sounds really cool. So, and then basically from these bands, let's say this was a door opener for black metal, and then I got into more and more bands. And in the early 2000s, when we got the album released with the other band, there were trades, like people were trading CDs basically, because you get a bunch of CDs from the label, and then you basically trade with others what you want. So, and I've been trading a lot with different smaller labels that actually don't exist anymore. And that was pretty cool because I've been getting so much different stuff, different exposure. So like from total like really raw black metal, let's say noise, to more pleasing records. And that was very interesting to see the whole spectrum. Okay, this is what is there. And I mean, nowadays it's even more explosive. The whole genre is in, like, I don't know, countless bands, and every day you can find something. But yeah, I mean, let's say early 2000s, that was like the time when I was really getting deeper and deeper into black metal. And of course, Mayhem Grand Declaration of War was a really big thing when I first heard it. I was like, wow, this is really like crazy stuff.
Yeah. This
It
is
was,
this is this is the next level.
I mean, it was so innovative back in the days. And I mean, when I still turn it on now, sometimes it's like, wow, this is really cool. Like the guitar lines and the overall concept, which was completely new back in the days, was so fresh. Yeah, I still like it.
Yeah.
Both the old version and the remastered version.
Yeah.
Appreciate them all. And
You,
then, yeah.
I was going to say, you mentioned My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost. Are those big bands big in Russia? What's the scene like generally in Russia? Because what I have started noticing are more interesting bands coming out of Russia as well. One of them being, and I'm going to get the name up here in a second, because I think I've spoken about a couple of Russian bands this year so far that have impressed me. And it feels like on balance there are more good bands coming out of Lotremon, I think is the band's name that I was thinking of. But it feels like on balance, there's more good black metal and more good extreme music coming out of Russia than certainly I can recall, throughout my time being in the scene.
Yeah, I mean, that's, let's say, back in the days when we were playing actively there, it was like, there were like several obstacles or difficulties there. It's like, first of all, of course, lack of good equipment, and like, yeah, you just simply were not able to afford something reasonable, because I'd say nowadays you can buy this Kemper Profiler amp, and that would just replace any big expensive amps. And the guitars are much more affordable and so on. So lack of good equipment, and also lack of experience with recording music, because basically the records were not so good. And there were not very good sound producers, studios. Like, you have a studio, but then there's no one who can record this kind of music. And yeah, and somehow, I mean, there's like, on a general level, there are not that many people that kind of listen to the music, and then there's no like bigger events. There were no bigger events back in the days, and of course there was a shortage of musicians. So like, it was really complicated to find someone who can play with you, because people just like, I don't know, play something more like a soft rock or punk rock. But then if you want to play something extreme, it's like there's nobody who can play drums like this. So, and I think, yeah, I mean, I didn't follow it that much, let's say from mid 2000 to, yeah, 5-6 years ago. But then I see the last 2-3 years, they're like really quality, I'd say world-class bands coming out, like Vobod, the band that has been out on Church Road Records in UK. They are really like amazing band. They play something like, I don't know, Blackened Cult of Luna, something like this. And they are really, they have really massive sound, really fat sound, very cool production, and yeah, just mind blown. And I mean, they are on British label, and yeah, have pretty good coverage, and yeah, and there are of course other bands. And I think when it comes specifically to black metal, then of course this possibility to afford, let's say, cheaper equipment or more affordable equipment these days, ease of access to software and so on. This just, there are so many like one-man bands or like smaller black metal projects that are just there. And like there's a very big, there's this social network called vk.com.
Yeah.
It's like a Russian Facebook, something like this. And then there are like we have a black metal community there with like almost 100,000 people, 100,000 people inside this community. And there's almost every day there's something new coming in. It's just like you just lose the track about all the good bands that are coming up there. And it's like, this is just, mind blowing. Okay, there's so many people out there that do create something. and yeah, it's just crazy. And I mean, I see that they have good shows and festivals and so on, and basically more and more bands from Russia coming into Norway. But I mean now, sorry, not Norway, but Europe.
Yeah.
More known abroad, and then of course now everything is completely shut down because of Corona and all those regulations. People just can't travel abroad. But yeah, there are many really great bands, and also from like deeper parts of Russia, like these bands like Grima, Ultar, and so on, which are really from deep Siberia, and they are like world class, level guys. So yeah.
I was about saying you got the weather there to inspire this type of music as well. So how connected do you still feel to Russia? In terms of having kind of grown up there. I mean, I still feel this. There's a part of me that definitely still feels very much like I'm South African. I mean, even though I've lived in this country for, coming up 20 years now, I still feel at heart like a South African. I don't feel like I'm from England. But then at the same time, I feel like a degree of disconnection when I actually go to South Africa. Like I feel like physically home is here, but culturally, I still feel like home is South Africa. It's a weird kind of thing. I don't know how many people would actually understand what I'm talking about unless you've gone through it yourself, which is partly why I ask you the question.
Well, I mean, it's to some extent it's somewhat similar, because you feel connected, but then when you come there, you see that things have changed. And they're like, okay, you don't really have that much in common anymore. So let's say it's more like a cultural connection, because the society is also changing, and then you see, okay, I'm not really, I can't really, associate myself with society, because the values and the problems, discussions that are in the society, this all moves on, and then you are completely out of there, and it's like for me it's more like I'm more here than there. It's like I don't, I mean, it's like my homeland, but I don't feel it's my home anymore. And but it's in a way, for me it's not a very difficult change, because some people, when they move out, when they are, let's say, not kids, they have difficulties to adapt somewhere. But I don't think that I ever had this, partially because like 10-15 years ago, I read an interesting book from one scientist who has been studying birds, but then he's a biologist, but then he wrote a book about traits in human behavior, which he kind of aligns to behavior in animals. And one of those was that, so there he wrote that when you're a child, when you travel a lot, you don't develop a connection to a particular place. So if you have been changing different places when you were like a small child, then you don't have any connection to any place at all. So then basically you can adapt much more easily to any environment where you move in. But of course you then lose this stronger connection, because sometimes people have really strong feelings about, okay, this particular village is my home. I want to go back there when I will be old or whatever, or I want to return there every time I have free time. But then I don't have this kind of stuff. It's more like home is where I am at the moment, and something like this.
Yeah. I think for me, what helped me with the transition, weirdly enough, is was a combination of music and comedy. I grew up on a very steady diet of shows like Faulty Towers and Blackadder and things like that. So you immediately kind of have some common ground that you can make with people, even though those shows are old. But more than that, obviously listen to a huge number of British bands, including Paradise Lost, My Dying Bride, bands like that. Briefly, I listened to Cradle of Filth, but it's a weird. Just circling back to what you were saying about music, I feel like most black metal fans I know go through this journey where you hear all the stuff that we just mentioned, like Immortal Emperor and things like that, and you go, yeah, that's a load of noise and that's bullshit. That and then you get into the stuff that's more accessible, And then about 3-4 years later, you find yourself going back to Wrath of the Tyrant and Pure Holocaust and Battles in the North, and you go, Jesus, this is fucking incredible. And it's so incredible that I can't go back to all that crap that I was listening to previously. Like, once I take a newer band, an Al Nathrak. I remember hearing the Codex Necro for the first time and going, this is the biggest load of shit that I've ever heard in my life. I can't believe people like this. Or Hate Them by Dark Throne. I remember hearing that and going, "This is absolute garbage. I can't understand why people like Dark Throne so much." And then you revisit them 2 years later or 3 years later, and your mind is just blown. Like, how did I not see this? This is absolutely incredible. And a lot of this, the things that you were listening to before, that's maybe a little bit more polished and just a little more sweet sounding, they just don't excite you anymore.
Yeah, I think it's pretty normal because, like you get used to something and then you want something fresh or different. But then when you are inside the genre, let's say, you know what you are looking for, basically. You understand many things, and then you can hide, you can find those hidden gems, under the layer. Let's say when okay, this is just, a sound concept, okay? It's like, don't think about sound concept, just listen to the content inside this. Okay, that's fine, and from this point of view, let's say if we go back to discussions about me and my wife, like very often she doesn't agree with the sound. Like she can say, well, I don't accept this kind of sound, and I can say, well, listen, this is really good, this is really cool, and she would be like, no, well, this just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, this is also partially because I'm kind of submerged into music, like, I don't know, most of the time, when I'm not working, I'm, either considering something or listening to something, or something is going on, and then it's just, okay, this is kind of type of the sound, and you just look for idea inside the sound. Whereas for people that are not very much familiar with what is the idea, sound would be more important. But at the same time, I think it's very often, I think it's important that sound doesn't distract from the content, let's say, because there are a few bands, I don't want to mention them, just not to offend them, that I really like how they sound live, and I don't like their records, simply because on the records, the sound is conceptually, very much underground or like raw, whatever. Whereas on the concert, you can hear like, everything is untouched, this is how it should sound. So, and like, some bands really sound really cool live, whereas on the records, it's like,
just not doing it for you.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. I'm trying to think of who would immediately spring to mind, but I think one thing, as much as I became a bit of a sound snob when I got into hi-fi or higher end audio, but at the same time also, there's just some bands I don't really want much polish around them. Like, God only knows what they did on this stupid new Dark Throne record. I mean, whoever decided it was a good idea to give them that kind of production, it's just madness to me. But then at the same time, like for me, they sounded at their best around Plague Wielder, Hate Them, when they had that kind of raw sound, but it was still, there was separation between the instruments. You could hear what was going on. I want to kind of sidetrack actually for a second, because I know you have a hard stop in 9 minutes time. I was curious what you said.
no, I mean, it's okay.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I didn't want to cut into work time. You mentioned building scale models. So, and the way you mentioned it sounds like it's something you get into pretty deep. Talk to me about that. How long have you been doing it for? What got you into the hobby? And okay, so what's the scale of ambition? Because I built scale models when I was younger as well. I very quickly realized that I don't have the aptitude for it, because I don't have the patience, and I'm not handy enough. So, but I'll shut up and let you talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, like everyone, I started them when I was a child, like a small child, build a few kits with my father, and then build myself. But I mean, it was like, child stuff, just you make it and you play with it. And then when I was living here in Norway, and haven't done any music and haven't done anything. So in these days, then my wife got me a present for a birthday. Like, okay, well, this is your childhood hobby. Maybe you would be happy to do it again. And I was very skeptical to this. Like, okay, maybe not. And and she even gave me like a receipt. Well, if you don't want, you can return to the shop. And I said, okay.
What was it that she'd given you?
Sorry.
What had she given you?
A kit, a tank, a German tank. Yeah. So, and I was like, okay, well, yeah. And I simply, Googled a little bit on the internet. I was like, oh, okay, this is how models look these days. This is really interesting. So it kind of hooked me on. Like, I was like, I was first tempted to see if I would manage, to build up a certain level, so that it looks proper. And then, yeah, it just got me into this. And yeah, I was building, I was very, let's say, intense, because I was building for magazines, book chapters, and so on. So let's say, yeah, I'm pretty known in the scale modeling world worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh
let's say,
Jesus! Okay,
so
so you're like a celebrity in the scale model scene.
well, it's not a celebrity, but I mean, people know me because, okay, they know I write for the magazines.
You turned up to the convention and they went, "Oh, look at that! It's Roman."
No, I mean, I had workshops
Yeah.
at conferences and exhibitions. So yeah, master classes and things like that. So I mean, I'm quite okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
I'm
always
not.
fascinated by people's who can do stuff like that extremely well. I think in part because I can't do it well, and also I'm generally very interested in military stuff and anything to do with military war history and things like that. I'm interested in. But what's the most like ambitious project that you've undertaken in the scale modeling world?
Well, I mean, it's let's say it's pretty fun. I mean, I can send you, if you want. I can send you a picture afterward, and you can
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
put it afterwards in the show if it's interesting. So well, I built like APC, a Russian APC, BTR, from the conflict in Ukraine, recent. And the thing was that there I made like bar armor around the model, which was made like from thin plastic strips, which I had to cut, drill, and arrange in a certain pattern. So basically, I used 10 meters of plastic strips.
Jesus Christ! And how long did that take you?
Well, I mean, it was on and off. So I mean, it's not, you don't do it for living, so you just do it when you have time. And this making this plastic strips, I don't know, maybe I spent, I don't know how many hours, many hours. And my kids were laughing at me like, okay, you're messing up with really like 10 meters plastic strips. That's really stupid to some extent. But I mean, I was like, well, it's just, it's just you become so stubborn. Like, I really want to make this as I've seen on the photograph, on the web. I really want to replicate it the way it is. So I simply made it. And yeah, that was one of the challenging projects. But otherwise, let's say the more challenging projects are actually not the making the models itself, but let's say we made a book for one publisher, and then it was coordinating people and getting things to deadlines and so on, because this is so much different from work when people know that, okay, I have to deliver, right? Whereas with hobby, it's like you are dependent on people who are let's say amateurish with this regard, and they're like, I'm not done yet, and then you kind of postpone everything. So that was one of the most challenging efforts to make to make a book with other different contributors. And but I mean, I did quite a lot. So last time I counted for the workshop, just to tell people a bit of myself. It was like I made more than 80 models during like 7 years, something like this, 7, 8 years. So that is pretty pretty high production rate for this kind of hobby, and on a rather good level. So it's not yeah.
That's fucking awesome, man.
I can't say that I'm in a really top league, but yeah, I'm somewhere in a close to them.
You're moving up, brother. So there's hopefully a new Bizarrekult record. It would certainly not going to take another 15 years for one to come out. What's kind of the plans right now with album number 2, potentially album number 3 down the line?
Yeah, so the album number 2, we recorded everything. Everything is ready for mix and mastering. We already agreed with the sound. We will use the same studio that we used for this record for the first one. So that would be ready somewhere in November, and then somewhere in mid next year, I hope, for release. So that would be a new album, and I think for me personally, as the author of music, that would be slightly different. I can say it's slightly different from the first record, because I changed myself mentally, and slightly different inspiration also for lyrics. I think musically it's more diverse to some extent. I mean, not like that you have everything in one pot. No, not at all. It's more like I don't know, in some areas I can say it's a little bit more sophisticated, in my opinion, with the more sophisticated guitar lines, something like this. And I think it's simply beautiful if you can use such adjectives to black metal albums. I think it will be a beautiful record, and I don't know, I hope people would like it even more than number 1.
Yeah, I was about to say, mate, I'm pretty confident that they will, and you have a lot of good vibes behind number 1 already, which again, congratulations on an awesome debut, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more from you. So thanks so much for coming on the show, buddy, and stay on for 2 seconds afterwards. I just want to ask you one quick thing off the air, but thank you very, very much, and hopefully we'll have you on again at some point around the release of album number 2.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you very much, and
take care.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye. You just listened to a track called Ut I Skogen of Vi Overlevde by Bizarrekult, available right now on Preticore Records. I spoke about it on the show last week, and I said it was one of the most impressive debuts of 2021. I will reiterate that right now. If you haven't heard it yet, make sure that you do. And thank you so much to Roman for coming on the show. Really enjoyed talking to him. And I believe that we will most certainly be doing a chapter 2 when the new record comes out. So Bizarrekult coming your way, and I don't see a lot of other podcasts and a lot of other websites getting particularly excited about this record, which I think is a goddamn disgrace. Speaking of which, apparently Erdve out of Lithuania are blacklisted on Metal Archives, because whoever runs the show over there believes that it's that they sound like post-hardcore or like really heavy post-hardcore, but they don't believe that they're metal. Regardless of what they are, this second record that they've just put out on Season of Mist, Savagela, is one of the nastiest, most violent things you are going to hear in your entire goddamn life, certainly in 2021. I think the record cover actually sets the precedent for that quite well. It kind of looks at first, when you look at it, like it's somebody who's been burned alive, and then you notice it's somebody who's been rolling in the mud and red paint, but is also on fire. Either way, I love the album. I love the album art. I love everything about the music. These guys have been around since 2016. They are, I believe, a three-piece, although some of the photos that I've seen of the band, there's 4 guys in the band. Either way, apparently the lyrics of the band, or their lyrics, visuals, and sound are based around concepts like domestic violence, utmost disgusting behavior, and I'm getting this straight off the bio, crimes against humanity, and extremism. So they put out their debut album in 2018, also on Season of Mist. To be honest with you, I have not actually checked out their debut album yet. And I must give a shout out to the great Scott Bamford for pointing out this release to me, and also reminding me that I need to check out my my emails more often, because I actually had the promo for this lying in my Into the Necrosphere inbox for a while, and I just didn't get around to listening to it. But either way, absolutely fucking ridiculous record when you start listening to it. They describe themselves as a blend of sludge, black metal, and hardcore. I would say the bands that most closely remind me of what's on here are probably This Gift Is a Curse and Burnt by the Sun. But there's definitely more of a black metal vibe to a lot of the songs. I feel like this record, for the most part, feels a lot more claustrophobic, possibly even a little nastier and a little heavier than both of those bands, both of whom I really enjoy. But there's just something about this record that kind of pulls you in, and it feels like it's choking you out for the most part. Most of the songs are super heavy, really kind of densely produced, very, very tightly performed. But one of the things that I think Erdve do extremely well is to kind of break things up when it gets a little too chaotic. So I think the third track is an example, sort of the first indication of a more melodic break, or at least a slowdown in some of the craziness. And then throughout the record, there's these moments where it's either like a soundscape or something ambient, or it'll just be, this very sort of hypnotic melodic riff that gets repeated over a period of time, right before the carnage kicks back in. Vocals are throaty and mean. The drumming is fucking chaotic and all over the place. Reminds me a little bit of Converge at points. But, Jesus, I don't know what's been going on in Lithuania, but something sure has these 3 lads pissed off, and it has translated into some absolutely outstanding music. So the record, as I said, is called Savagela. It is out right now on Season of Mist. Here is a song for you right now called Smala. off a record called Savagela, a song called Smala by a band called Erdve. The song, or the album, is available right now on Season of Mist. I will post a link in the description of the podcast. Go check them out. And if they ask you who sent you, you let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere. And again, thanks very much to Scott Bamford for reminding me of this record. Definitely one that I was a fool to sleep on for at least a couple of weeks, but I am not going to be surprised if this turns up in a couple of top 10s of 2021. It'll have stiff competition as far as my own list is concerned. I think this year has been pretty nuts, for good new releases. But certainly, very, very cool album. And one I did say last week, I kind of needed a little bit of time to digest before I spoke about it on the podcast, because it really is one of those that the more you listen to it, the more it kind of gives back to you. So do check it out if you haven't done so already. I am now going to turn to Metal Storm and talk about some news. And the first piece of news on Metal Storm is huge news, actually. I personally didn't think this was ever going to be possible, but anyway, Guns N' Roses have released their first song in 13 years. They played it live, and I know there was a leak of it on YouTube. The song is called Absurd. The article reads, although Guns N' Roses released their most recent album, Chinese Democracy, back in 2008, an absolute train wreck of a record, the iconic LA band just put out a brand new song called Absurd, which marked the first to feature guitarist Slash and bassist Duff McKagan since the Spaghetti incident in 1993. Absurd is actually a reworked version of Silkworms, a track that was originally written during the Chinese Democracy sessions and was first performed live back in 2001 under the latter name. The announcement of the Absurd single, which also features former Guns N' Roses drummer Brian Brain Mantia, comes just a few days after the band played it live for the first time since 2001 at a show in Boston last Tuesday, where frontman Axl Rose introduced the song to the crowd and said, "Some of you might have heard this under another name, but this is really kind of absurd to try this. Wasn't that funny?" And they don't even know the joke yet. Okay, this is called Absurd. Ha ha ha. It's not a bad song, actually. I still hold to the belief that unless Guns N' Roses were to all get back into the heroin, into the yam yam, and they got Izzy Stradlin back in the band, we are never going to hear anything close to Appetite for Destruction, definitely. And I've always had a soft spot for Use Your Illusion as well, even though I know a lot of people don't like it. I mean, it's overindulgent, and there's a lot of songs that need to be chopped off of it, but there's, for the most part, some fucking great music on there. And also, I grew up with it, so I'll always have a soft spot for it. But either way, I don't think if Izzy's not in the band, I don't think you're ever going to come anywhere close to recapturing that old Guns N' Roses magic. And two, as I said, if the Chinaman's nightcap isn't present, ever present in the band's day-to-day routine, which I don't wish upon anybody, but you know what I mean, then I just don't know how you recreate that sort of craziness and that chaos that birthed those records. But either way, as I said, it's not a bad song. It certainly is better than Chinese Democracy, even though I concede that song was originally written for Chinese Democracy. But that album, I thought, was an absolute load of poo. Insomnium to release 9th studio album next year. In a recent interview with the Metal Crypt, Insomnium vocalist and bassist Nilo Savanen revealed that there will be a new album next year, a follow-up to 2019's Heart Like a Grave. The band previously announced that they will release a new EP next month titled Argent Moon. Insomnium, I really, really liked their first 2-3 records, and then for no good reason, I've just not really paid a whole lot of attention to them since, in part because that kind of style of melodic death metal just has never done anything for me. Aside from for a probably brief period of time. I think as I kind of skipped over into getting into more grim and brutal black metal, that style of melodic death metal just lost its appeal completely. But I might give this a try again. I know people still soil their little trousers about it, so I'll check it out. Massacre releasing Resurgence album in October. Death metal machinery from Florida Massacre will return this fall with their highly anticipated fourth full-length effort, Resurgence. That's set for release on October the 2nd through Nuclear Blast. Their first record in 7 years is comprised of 10 new tracks, and you can now listen to the first one called The Innsmouth Strain. Not listened to this yet. I will check it out. I saw that Massacre are confirmed alongside just about every other legendary death metal band still in existence for next year's Maryland Death Metal Festival, which I know many people are absolutely freaking out over that lineup. So looks like it's going to be a big one, and these guys being back, they certainly add to it. Yeah, I'll check out that song. As I said, not had time to check it out as of yet. But I do like me some Massacre, and I think that their first album is, probably still one of the freshest sounding of that era. Even though it's probably somewhat under-celebrated. Enslaved announced EP and released their first track off of the EP. Also something I haven't listened to yet, but then again, the last Enslaved album didn't do anything for me. Enslaved have announced the release of their new EP called Caravan to the Outer Worlds, which will hit the stores on October 1st. Alongside unveiled details, you can now stream a music video for the title opening track. Wolves in the Throne Room unleash Primal Chasm Gift of Fire song. Atmospheric black metal act Wolves in the Throne Room are now streaming an official music video for Primal Chasm, another preview tune of their upcoming album Primordial Arcana. So far, I think the first single I thought was alright. The rest of the stuff they've put out has done nothing for me. And I'll tell you another thing that grinds my gears very much the wrong way when it comes to Wolves in the Throne Room. The fact that their fans are always so eager to remind you that they're a leftist black metal band, I just think is fucking lame. Speaking of which, Watain Inc. deal with Nuclear Blast Records. It stands to reason that, with Dissection no longer in existence, Nuclear Blast needed to replace their stock standard Swedish black metal house band with something else. So I'm not surprised that they would sign Watain. Besides which, Watain are a huge band which people love. I still don't get it. You guys would have noticed they were not on my top 50 favorite black metal bands list either last year or the revised version that I discussed with Marco of Stellar Master Elite a couple of weeks ago. And a lot of people, including Mike from Tombs, some good friends of mine, will continually sort of tell me, man, this is really good, great band. I've just never gotten it. I don't know why. There's nothing that they do wrong that I when I listen to their music, I don't go, this is awful, put it off. I've just never ever have the urge to go and listen to them. Something I did find hysterical is that left-wing metal Twitter was in immediate uproar over this, and a certain imbecile who a while back released a watch list for people to stay away from fascist black metal bands and fascist black metal labels has vowed to launch a full investigation into Nuclear Blast Records. So obviously expect Nuclear Blast to shut up shop pretty soon because of the horrific things that'll be revealed there. But also, according to this fucking slobbering buffoon, Watain are as far right as it gets. Anyways, it says, Nuclear Blast are proud to announce the signing of Swedish black metal formation Watain. The band have entered Necromorbus Studios, located inside a church north of their hometown, Uppsala. Very, very daring, to record a new album and successor to the 2018 opus Trident Wolf Eclipse. It is expected to come out in spring of 2022. The band states, "Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great reverence and infernal hunger alike that we now stand before the next chapter of Watain, armed with a faith, force, and money lavished upon us by the management at Nuclear Blast." Imagine if they did put that in there. No, what it says is, armed with a faith, force, and fire accumulated during the Trident Wolf Eclipse era, we're now entering Terragon Incognata to again face our inner selves and the ever-expanding abyss that roars within. A few months of hard, noble work lay ahead, and we could not be more ready for it. We're more eagerly looking forward to sharing the result with you in all the wild times to come. Until then, stay hungry, stay deviant, stay free, and fuck the world. Anyway, big news, I think. Like I said, I mean, maybe this opens the door to Nuclear Blast getting maybe a little, going back to their roots a little bit. Because let's be honest, it's been a long time since they have, I believe, broken any new bands. Certainly, like not to the degree that they used to. I mean, they used to be the label that set the trends, and I feel like they've just become this very sort of safe, stagnant place right now. I mean, again, as I said before, when a band has the Season of Mist logo, or they've got the Debut Morti logo, or the Apocalyptic Witchcraft logo, or Von Records. And actually even Eisenwald, I'm immediately interested. I don't always like the stuff that comes out from those labels, but I'm immediately interested. Whereas with Nuclear Blast, it's very much the exception to the rule at the moment, and that's a shame, because without Death Is Just the Beginning Volume 3, I would not be the man that you see before you today. Sarka detail new record, Norway Sarka featuring Dark Throne's Nocturno Culto and Tulis ISC X Vortex members announce and detail their 7th studio record, Alcir. The music offering will be released worldwide via Soul Cellar Records on November the 5th, 2021. It was recorded by Borg Finstad and Kevin Cliven at Top Room Studios. One wonders whether Nocturno's comments about black metal having lost its power means that the new Sarka will be an acoustic folk record in the style of Elliott Smith. Mayhem put out music video for Black Glass Communion. I saw the music video. All right. I think that they Century Media made a really big deal about it, which again gives you an idea of how big Mayhem have actually gotten. Music videos. I've never really been a huge fan of music videos unless you kind of go way back to the MTV Headbangers Ball days, and that's the only way you could discover new music. But when it comes to live streaming events, music videos, I can listen to I can sit down for 1 or 2 tracks and then I'm done. People that get so excited about that shit, I think that I think you live a very closed off and boring life, but that's just me. Internal Bleeding Overthrow Creation single unleashed. New York's extreme metalers Internal Bleeding have unleashed Overthrow Creation. I actually had these guys kind of on the hook to do an episode of the podcast, because I am a very big fan of Internal Bleeding, and then for whatever reason we never managed to line up a time, so I might reach out to them again, see if they're up for it, because this new song is the fucking nuts. I mean, if you like Internal Bleeding, you're gonna absolutely soil your little trousers about this new song, and I really liked the previous record as well. I can't remember what it was called. I mean, obviously, I know the cover really well. It's a blue face that's screaming, but I mean that's some straight up gym music, and so is this new song. So fucking fantastic stuff there, and I'm really looking forward to the next Internal Bleeding record. And like I said, I will see if I can get them on the show. What else? Full of Hell, new record due in October. Reveal details and first single. Again, Full of Hell, not a bad band, but not a band that I've gotten overly excited about. Certainly not to the degree that many other folks have done. I've noticed, by the way, that quite a few of the bands that were due to be touring, or at least going to Psycho Las Vegas in a couple of weeks' time, that's all been cancelled. And a few people have been talking recently about the fact that we're just going to have to start getting used to the fact that promoters are going to announce these crazy lineups, with just about every band going. There's a very good chance that a big chunk of those bands won't be able to turn up for whatever reason. I read another non-music article the other day about people from the UK flying to Mexico for a holiday, only to be told whilst on the plane that, oh, by the way, Mexico is now a red-listed country, so it's going to cost you £2,500 to quarantine when you get back. So the fucking total shambles foisted upon us by the bureaucrats and the simpletons that run things continues unabated, and apparently will continue for at least the next several years, I think. All right, let's move on to Blabbermouth. See if there's anything. Or actually, ironically, Mike Portnoy and Alex Skolnick have a bad feeling about COVID-19's impact on upcoming tours. Just spoke about that now. I think it is. I think it stands to reason that they, probably are going to experience that themselves. If memory serves me correctly, the Testament guys were. They all had COVID when they got back off of tour. At the very least, I know their tour was cancelled because of COVID. Or they were midway on it, midway through a tour when the COVID hit. Anyway, right. Soulfly's Max Cavalera says Mark Rizzo was fired due to personal reasons. Let's see what it says there. I love me some goss. Soulfly main man Max Cavalera said that the band's longtime guitarist Mark Rizzo was fired due to personal reasons. Max addressed Rizzo's departure during the latest episode of Max Tracks, a twice weekly internet video series in which he discusses the inspiration for many of the songs spanning his nearly 40-year music career. He said, as transcribed by Blabbermouth, "Well, we were looking at Mark Rizzo's Instagram, and I noticed that he follows Donald Trump and Larry Elder and Thomas Sowell, so I said, fuck that, fuck all your bullshit, fuck all your politics, your ass is fired." No, it says, right now for the tribe, I want to address something that's going on with Soulfly. Of course, it's about Mark Rizzo. He did not leave the band. We decided to part ways with him due to personal reasons. I wish Mark the best on his career. I want to thank Mark for the 18 years with Soulfly. And they now have Dino Cazares joining the band to play at least on their upcoming tour. Mark's a pretty damn good guitarist, though. As much as I'm not, the biggest fan of Soulfly, Mark knows his way around a fretboard. I'm curious to see how or who they replace him with, and if it is Dino, are they ready to play songs that only have two notes in every single riff? I think, friends, that is about it for this week's news. I see Deicide have kicked off their US tour in Tampa. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do musically with Chris Canella now in the band. I know he's he brings a different flavor of riff writing to proceedings, but it says here, Florida death metal veterans Deicide kicked off their US tour with Cataclysm in Internal Bleeding and Begat the Nephilim last night at the Orpheum in Tampa, Florida. Fan-filmed footage of Deicide's performance can be seen below. The trek will make stops in Austin, Chicago, and New York before concluding on August 29th in Spartanburg, South Carolina. 2 months ago, Deicide guitarist Chris Canella spoke to Jason Saulnier about the progress of the songwriting sessions for the follow-up to the band's 2018 album Overtures of Blasphemy. He said, "Since I moved out to Florida from Arizona a year ago, it's been non-stop Satan worship 24/7. In between all of that, the devil's been giving us ideas for some riffs." No, I'm sorry, folks. I'm in a silly goose mood today. It just says, they've been writing the follow-up to Overtures of Blasphemy. Side note from me, I thought Overtures of Blasphemy was a fucking boring load of shit, and nothing in comparison to the genius that was the first Deicide records. But I am excited to see what Canella does. He's a great guitarist. His own band, I can't even remember what they were called. His own band is fucking excellent, and also his vocals are really good as well. So why they don't get him to do more backing vocals on stage, I don't know. But friends, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for checking out the podcast. If you've stuck around all the way to the very end, I salute you. And I look forward to having you back later this week when myself and my friend Lo Reichert will be back to talk about Woodstock 99. And then next week, I have Jay White of Overthrow on tap. I say Overthrow UK because we all know that the original Overthrow featured the great Nick Sagias on guitar. Nick Sagias, currently of Tribe of Pazuzu, and he was also on the podcast I think around episode 60-ish something, or maybe 70. I don't know. Either way, it was a controversial episode. So check it out if you haven't done so yet. But have yourselves a great week. I'm going to play out with the new single by Internal Bleeding, which, as I said in the news section, I absolutely love. This is a song called Overthrow Creation. Take care, everybody. See you soon.
Overthrow